Joseph and Mary go to Egypt with the baby boy. After that, he is told in a dream once again. Joseph told once again. I don't know what to do with Joseph and dreams. Remember the other Joseph? He had dreams too. Anyways, I looked up the meaning of that just to see if there was any kind of correlation. That it doesn't mean anything about that. But anyway, so after Herod dies, the angel tells Joseph and Mary, "Okay, it's good to go. You guys go back to Jerusalem, or go back to Judea." Remember these Judea, Galilee, Samaria, Idumea, Perea. These are all Roman provinces. Okay, these are all things that Romans district up. These are like counties, we would say, in the Roman world. Okay? So, Herod dies. Herod dies about 4 BC. That's the traditional date. There's argument in recent scholarship that's arguing for a 1 BC date. Okay? Either way, the reason why that's important is that place depends on where Jesus is at, when he lives, and all this. We won't get into any of that. Herod dies 4 BC. After he dies, his sons take parts of his kingdom. Remember, Herod is considered a king by Rome. Jews never considered him a king. He's not the true king. He's not the Davidic line. So Joseph comes back, but when he's coming back, he hears that Archelaus is running Judea now. Archelaus is the son of Herod the Great, one of the sons of Herod the Great. If you thought Herod the Great was bad, he don't have anything on his son Archelaus. The guy was a monster. Okay? In fact, it wasn't too long after this that Archelaus was recalled to Rome because of cruelty and incompetence. After he is recalled to Rome, then he is replaced by a Roman prefect or governor. That's where we get the Pontius Pilate type thing. Now, Pilate is about the 5th one into it. But that's how Herod's reign, his line or lineage goes away. So Archelaus is in Judea. Joseph is coming back from Egypt. He's like, Well, he's warned again to go to Galilee. All right? Philip's running the show in Galilee. That's his other son. Let's see. I'm sorry, Philip's not running the show. Herod. That's right. Herod's running Galilee. This is Herod Antipas. All right, this is Herod's son, not Herod the Great. We'll try to keep all the Herods straight in the New Testament, but they can get a little bit confusing. So anyway, Joseph comes back. He says, okay, he's wanting a dream. No, go to Galilee. All right. Herod the Tetrarch is a good way to remember it. He's running Galilee, which was also one of Herod the Great's sons as well. He's a lot better than Archelaus. So that's where they go. Head to Nazareth and stay in Nazareth. All right. So one thing I skipped over was Jesus was dedicated in the temple. He was circumcised on the 8th day. They kept the law. Mary and Joseph went in and did the sacrifices. And so every point of the law has been kept up until this point. Okay, that's important. That'll be significant for us coming up pretty soon. So, all right. So John, we're back in Matthew. Let's look at Luke, chapter 3. Luke chapter 3. I'm sorry. Luke chapter 2, verse 41. Y'all got it? Yeah. All right. So this is when Jesus visits Jerusalem. So we're told every year that Jesus and his parents, or at least his parents, went to Jerusalem every year. Now Luke tells us more about the infancy, childhood of Jesus than anybody else. We have very sparse details on the childhood of Jesus. There's some apocryphal gospels that tell you a lot more about it. Stay away from those. They're garbage. Dismissed a long time ago. Anyway, so Jesus is 12 years old, and he goes up to the temple with his parents. What's going on here is Jesus is getting ready for his bar mitzvah. All right, at 13, the Jewish boy would become a son of the law. Okay, so at 13, that was what we would call like an age of accountability. So they were responsible for keeping the religious law of Israel when they hit 13. That's called their bar mitzvah. Well, at 12, they would go up. It was custom for the 12-year-old boys to go up a year before, at the Passover, the year before they were going to do their bar mitzvah. They would check out the temple and look around if they haven't had a chance to, to really lay eyes on it. The younger children weren't required to go back and forth to all these festivals and things like that. All right, adult men were. So it wouldn't be unusual at all for you to leave your family behind. Some of them didn't, some of them did. Okay, but in any event, they would come there the year before. They would check everything out, make sure they were good to go. And that's what's happening here. Jesus shows up. So they get ready to go, and they leave Jesus at the temple, or they leave Jesus in Jerusalem. So, and you imagine this. They show up, they celebrate the Passover, and they go back they're headed back home. They leave Jesus back in Jerusalem. These people would travel by caravans. So they're up here in Galilee. All right, they got to get to Jerusalem down here. So what they do is they have their friends and families and neighbors, and they would all get together. You going to the feast this year? Yeah, I'm going to the feast. You going to the feast? All right. Well, let's all go together. They did that obviously for social reasons, but they also did that for safety, because they're going to have to walk this whole way. All right, it'd take them several days, and a lot of times they would skirt around the other side of the Jordan and come back. We'll get to that, but in any event, when they would be walking in these great big caravans, imagine this: all the women would group up, all the guys would group up. All the women typically walked in front. All the guys walked in the back. All right, so you can see how they go to Jesus. As 12, Jesus is right on the cusp of being a young man. Still a boy, almost a young man. So they're headed out, and Joseph thinks Jesus is with Mary because he's still a boy. I mean, he's not a man yet, he's still a boy. So Joseph thinks, okay, Jesus is out front with his mom up front. He's not worried about where Jesus is. Mary's taking care of him. Well, Mary's thinking, well, he's almost a man, he wants to hang out with the guys, and he's in the back with Joseph. Well, they get a day out, and when they would stop, they would camp, and they would build their campfires, and everybody would come around and be talking about what happened in Jerusalem and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't take long for them to figure out Jesus isn't there. So they freak out, and they head back to Jerusalem, where it takes them 3 days to find him. And when they find him, Jesus is hanging out in the temple, all right, talking to the teachers of the law. What would happen after these Passover times is the priests and the teachers would hang out after the festivities were over with, so they could talk about theology. They could discuss the law, because a lot of them would be spread out all over the country, even all over the Roman world. And this gave them one chance, or one out of 3 chances, 3 festivals a year. This one being the most important one. They didn't get to hang out and talk theology or theories and thoughts and their interpretation of Scripture. So they hung out and did this. This is what Jesus is walking into. These are a bunch of PhDs that are sitting down discussing the deep things of the law, the stuff that they can't really talk to their normal people about because they don't get it. These guys do. That's what Jesus is in the middle of. All right. So he's asking questions, And they're astounded by his knowledge and his learning of the law, the things of God. And he's 12 years old. He's obviously a prodigy. So, our obvious question is, how does Jesus know what he knows? The easy answer is, well, he's God. And that may be what's going on here. It may be true. I don't think it's that easy. Remember, Jesus is truly God and truly man. And we believe that he's one person. I mean, he's got a divine essence and a human essence. There's no commingling or distortion. We have to be really careful about not blending Jesus' humanity with his deity. Because if we do that, we destroy both his deity and his humanity. He becomes some third thing. All right? So, he has two natures. He has a divine nature and he has a human nature without commingling or mixture of any kind. Each nature retaining its own attributes. If you guys want to look more into that, the Council of Chalcedon is the council that set down basically where we're at on the Trinity, on the incarnation. The mystery of incarnation is way too deep for me to understand, but essentially they define it in terms of what it is not. So they kind of put boundaries around it. Don't go too far this way, don't go too far this way. We can't tell you what it is, but we can tell you what it's not. Anyway, the point of the story of all this is, I think what we see here in Jesus is, as one commentator seems to suggest, what you're looking at is a sinless human being. Sinless perfection. We don't understand how much sin distorts our minds and our understanding. Okay, so what you're seeing here is you're seeing Jesus, pure as snow. And they're talking about the things of God. So he has a profound understanding of these things. Maybe because God, his divinity was communicating that information to his humanity. Maybe because he could see clearly. We're taught in Scripture that sin will blind us. It dulls our eyes and our senses and understanding. I think that's what's going on here with Jesus. So that's the last glimpse we get of Jesus as a child. So we see him at 8 days old, when he is circumcised and named. We see him at 12 here in the temple. And then we're not going to see him again until he steps on the scene for his public ministry. Okay? The last thing I want to tell you guys is, this is Luke chapter 2, verse 51. Luke tells us, he says, talking about Jesus, he says, he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. So Mary goes back and finds Jesus. She's like, why did you do this to me and your father? We've been looking. I think she overreacts. He's 12. He ran off and left her. But hey, whatever. Anyways. But the Bible makes it clear that he was obedient, he was sinless, and he goes back and obeys his parents. What I want to point out to you guys here, first thing is, it says, then he went down to Nazareth. It's a little detail, it's kind of confusing if you're not familiar with the geography of Palestine. You see, Nazareth is here, Jerusalem's down here, right? So how's he going? It's a figure of speech. Could be to do with elevation. The only reason why I point that out to you is because when you're reading scripture without a map and you see these directions, he went down this way, he went up this way. Don't necessarily think that you're talking north, south. Okay? Anyway, what I really want to point out to you guys is it says Jesus grew in wisdom, he grew in stature, he grew in favor with God and men. Did Jesus know that the world was round when he was born? No. No, Jesus was a man. We focused on his deity the last couple of classes because that's going to give us a bigger perspective of what was done. How far he stooped down to get us. But we can't let his divinity crush his humanity. Jesus was really a man, truly man. And we see that emphasized here in a small degree. He's growing in wisdom, he's growing in stature, he's growing in favor. God doesn't grow, he's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay? Jesus is growing as a man. And this is one of the ways that the Bible points that out. Okay, so the next time we get together, we're going to talk about John the Baptist and Jesus' public ministry. We'll also talk about the temptations of Christ.